to the Nerdiverse. Go ahead, sit and listen to the masters, the old heads, talk about what you love the most. Video games, comics, movies, and everything you need to maintain your week. Got the knowledge that's straight out the ether. Gonna need a drink and have to take a seat to expand your mind and listen to the speaker. Mike and the squad's gonna give you what you need. Please send in the question, come and get some answers, learn a couple lessons from the masters with the special guests. We got the Green Lanterns glowing on their chest. Yes, please sit back and relax, cause we're gonna hit you with them stone cold facts. And allow me to be the very first to welcome you to the masters of the Nerdiverse. Welcome to the Masters of the Nerdiverse podcast, where we always have such sights to show you. This neo-technical marvel of a podcast can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, SoundCloud, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Google Play, and Spotify. I'm, of course, your host, Mike G. Also with us is our also host, Ozzy Austin. And we have quite the show for you today.
My God, yes, we do.
We have quite the event. I just want to see just chariots, just golden chariots with like 17 horses on one chariot. I don't know how that will work logistically.
It's like a really bad Santa Claus reindeer analogy right there.
Can you imagine reindeers just powered by mastiffs? That would be awesome. Anywho, I digress. Today we're speaking with the head of digital, Daniel, as well as with Luis, the head of senior marketing, this senior marketing manager with Arrow Video. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey guys, thanks so much for being here. This is really exciting today.
Yes, this is extremely exciting. I cloned myself to put some of my excitement to that clone so that they can freak out in the corner and I can try to make some semblance of professionalism.
You just like put all your hype into one part of your body. Then
yes. I'm completely still, but my pinky toe is just going nuts right now. It's just
that's great. That's the kind of excitement we like to generate.
Absolutely. So, Danny, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I've been at Arrow now for over 4 years, and so I look after what is loosely termed digital. I mean it's unfortunately where the industry kind of calls it now. So which covers just about anything that isn't what things were like 15 years ago is probably the best way of looking at it. So, we look after, the kind of the licensing business within video on demand. So that's kind of obviously licensing our titles out to people like Shudder and to, Criterion, places like that. But then really kind of the key role of what I look after is the Arrow service, which, we launched properly in the US kind of early October. And that's really, pretty much I kind of head up all of that. Lou is a big part of that as well. Julie in our team is a big part of that as well. So we're kind of the part of the business now that looks after that whole thing. And it's a lot of fun. I mean, I've been doing this for about 12 years. I used to work at companies like Disney and a company called ITV in the UK. So I've kind of seen a lot of this industry change, over the last kind of 12 years, particularly as you could imagine where we are right now. And, it's quite fascinating to kind of finally have something like this because it's the kind of thing that, I've talked about a lot in my career that, I'd kind of, this is kind of the kind of thing that I think the industry needs in how we do things. It's kind of like people have kind of gone, oh, okay, then do it. And you're like, yeah, let's, yeah, sure. So I mean, with regards to Arrow, I mean, it's like they're a company that, is particularly in the UK, and obviously even more so now in the US over the last kind of, 10 years, that I've always known about. In the UK, the business is a lot more diverse, or used to be a lot more diverse than it is in the US. We used to look after a lot of TV series, lots of kind of, different kinds of films, of all different different types. So I'd always kind of been aware of the company, but to be honest, kind of walking in, and joining them, from, obviously working at such big companies and coming to something as small as this, it's quite the transition, that Arrow does things, very differently. And I think that's just kind of the natural growth of that company. And, all the great work that, someone like Lou's done, in the couple of years prior to me joining that, just made the business into something really, really different and really cool to kind of come into and hoping that, maybe the part of the thing I look after with, all the digital stuff could potentially help things.
Absolutely. And we live in a digital market now, and kind of to see the transition over time from, because I'm not old enough to have remembered the Betamax but I did have a VCR. So you kind of to jump from VCR to CD to now digital. It's interesting to see the world kind of adjust to that and how quickly it can adjust to that. And it's extremely promising and amazing to see Arrow follow that, head that trend.
Yeah, like I remember back in the day, I used to have VHS tapes. I mean, that kind of feels like outdated, ancient technology at this point. Then we used to have a DVD collection. Now it's just, oh, well, I'm just going to go stream instead. I'm going to save space. And it's really just kind of fascinating. People are wanting to minimalize and just eliminate physical space and just expand on digital space.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think it's, to be honest, it's what's been so fascinating. And, you see the key core part of what the Arrow Video kind of label does and the rest of the company that, as a company, we operate, still very much in that kind of physical product space as well.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I think that to us is I think a really key part, a key message of what we do is it's just about, choice. It's about, if you really want to have kind of the Arrow experience, which is a bunch of people that know an absolute ton about these films, these directors, these genres, but also most importantly, how to release these films, like how to find these films a home in the best way they possibly can. And that's what you've got across the whole company. So when you're looking at whether that's, from the digital perspective, whether that's from, the physical perspective, I think the one thing that we do really, really well, which I think a large part of the, the film world nowadays, particularly the bigger studios, it's all about, it's this or this. It's don't watch it that way anymore, watch it this way because we've invested in this thing, and I'll no longer do that, just subscribe to this, and I'll no longer and that to and I know this from my history in this business is that has been without doubt one of the most confusing experiences to the general customer, in the general audience in regards to understanding what this technology can do. And unfortunately, you just had a lot of people in charge for a long time that didn't know how this thing fit in their business.
Right.
And unfortunately, it meant that, it was quite confusing. But I think now it's great that instead of trying to force audiences to go, right, don't do that, don't buy it that way anymore, don't invest in it that way, just come and do it here. And I think for us, being able to offer something where you go, here's the full grouping, obviously when, theaters, cinemas were kind of open, we would release stuff at the cinema. We would release stuff on DVD, on Blu-ray, to rent, to buy, to stream, all these options are there. And that's the way to do things, is to give people the full range where you can on these great films that we release.
Absolutely. I definitely, and I love that because I'm a collector and I love collector's editions and I love the physical copy, you know what I mean? But at the same time, if I have some friends over, it may just be more feasible for me to stream it, from, directly from the source. So, or to show off my collector's edition, it depends on, and to have those options just opens up your business for just so much more availability of choice. And I love that option, and I love that availability that Arrow provides. Luis, how about you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your history with Arrow?
Yep. So I've been with Arrow quite a long time. I'm one of the kind of longest standing employees apart from a few others there. So I've been with the company for just over 8 years, which you reminded me of on our initial chats, which is really exciting. So I joined at a kind of assistant level. I was a sales and marketing assistant. So I was kind of just helping out when the office was probably about 5 people. We were very, very small. And then over the years, we've kind of expanded to a team of kind of 30, 35. We are now releasing films in the US and Canada. So there's been a lot of kind of growth and a lot of development for our company and for the people that work there. So yeah, I started off as an assistant. I've slowly worked up to being senior marketing manager. And I think it's just a really fun and fascinating place to work because it's always different. There's always new things to do. And because we're such a close-knit team and we all work collaboratively, it just means that everyone kind of gets to share their opinions. They get to kind of, if they don't think something's quite right, people are willing to kind of listen and speak up. And I think the way that we work together as a team is the reason that I've stayed there so long. And also because I'm a shameless collector like yourself, and I love physical media. My kind of introduction to Arrow was seeing the Blue Box Dawn of the Dead release in my local HMV, and from then I was literally hooked. And then I was really lucky to stumble across a job opening there, applied for it and managed to get the job, and it's been great ever since.
That is, you really just kind of stumbled upon the best possible relation.
Yeah, pretty much. And especially when I was a student at the time, so I didn't really have much of a disposable income. So buying the Blu-ray set at that time, it was like I could go out and I could like eat nice meals, or I'm going to buy the Blu-ray. So it was really kind of nice to have that and to kind of be able to spend time pouring through it and just eating kind of noodles for a week.
You chose wisely, I would say. If I was to quote the knight from Indiana Jones, you chose wisely.
I think so.
Absolutely. In regards to I'll go over my first experience with Arrow, and you do as well, Austin. But my first experience with Arrow was a birthday gift from a friend, and they know I was really into Hellraiser. Hellraiser is probably my top 3, if not my favorite horror film of all time. And I received the Scarlet Box for my birthday.
That's a good one, right?
Oh my
great.
goodness. I received it, and it was literally like opening the Holy Grail. I was just like, it's everything. Yeah. It's literally everything. And it's all, up-resed, and it just looked beautiful. And that was kind of like, okay, I need more. It's kind of like, feed me more. So I kind of felt
it's interesting you mentioned that one, because that to me, I'm trying to think. When we released that was 2016, right, Lou?
Yeah,
I think. And I think this had just come out, so this was just before I started at the company, and so this was like the example of like, oh, this is what we do. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So I kind of came in going, oh man, like just the best impression you could get from where I'd come from, very corporate world where things are just lots of family fun. Do you know what I mean? And you walk in and it's like this badass, most incredible looking Hellraiser Scarlet box set that you're just like, oh man, this looks good. Yeah. So it's interesting. It's the same kind of experience around about the same time. Just, it's cool.
Yeah. And you couldn't tear me away from it. And a lot of it was the behind the scenes and kind of like the capture and speaking with Clive Barker, speaking with Doug Bradley about the process. And that's always enticed me as a horror fan, is knowing the behind the scenes, seeing the makeup effects, kind of seeing how the cake is made, so to speak. And one of the questions I had for you is, in regards to getting access to so much content that is usually locked behind hidden doors, it's not open to the public. Do you find it difficult to gather that kind of data when you are curating and bringing these older films back to life?
Yes.
Direct.
Yes. I love it.
Yeah,
I think it definitely depends on the release as well. I think for the Scarlet Box in particular, we were really lucky to be working with the Clive Barker archivist, Phil and Sarah Stokes. So they really helped us get a lot of this stuff together and kind of pack out the release. Because we've got quite a lot of connections in the industry, we were able to get kind of an interview with Frank Cotton, as everyone knows, Sean Chapman, which was kind of a really big deal. Like, he hasn't really gone on record to talk about the films in quite a while. So having something like that was incredible. And the producer of this set, Ewan, a lot of this was down to him as well. Like you, he's a huge fan of the release. And when you're working on a title, I guess everyone kind of has a wish list of, oh great, we've got Hellraiser, I would love to be able to port this over, have this on there. And kind of just his hard work and determination also helped to get a lot of the incredible stuff. And sometimes luck, sometimes when we announce a film, someone will kind of get in touch with us and say, oh, I see you're releasing this film, I've got this kind of tape that's never been seen. Do you want to have a look? Would it be something that you could use? So the kind of horror community as a whole, instrumental in helping us kind of work on our releases and make them the best they can be.
That is amazing.
I think it's. Do you know what? I think that part is what I love about how, you know, that this company works, because it's no lie when you know, I talk about there's a very a kind of realness at the company. Do you know what I mean? It's there's a very genuine kind of approach to what we do. There's, you know, as Lou was just saying, and I'm first put my hand up, like when I first started Arrow, I thought I was a horror fan, and then I start Arrow, and then I work with these people, and I'm like, I know nothing about horror. I know
from introduction to experts.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I know less than, like, what's necromantic? Like, and it's just like stuff where it's kind of like, you know, that education of these people that work there, you know, from my side, you know, but the expertise is more in the elements of what I do and what I want to do. But I think that idea, you know, around, you know, working with people that are just so passionate about this kind of stuff, and that's what comes through in that end result. That, you know, there are people, like as Lou just said, with Ewan, and even, you know, with Lou, like to me, like Lou in what I do is just turn me on to things that I'm like, that's just incredible. Like I would never have even thought about that, because she knows so much, like so much about so much. This is turning into quite a nice positive podcast.
I know, I'm feeling the love. I'm loving this.
I know, this is great. But no, but I think that's, again, going back to what Lou was just saying earlier about that collaboration. Like, there's so little ego in all of this. It's a bunch of people that just really love this thing that we do with these really incredible films that we've got. And it's been able to kind of bring so much of this stuff to light that, you know, yeah, do you know what? It's not a Disney movie. It's not like a big action film that's good. But you know what it is? It's something that's really cool and really different, and something that we think people should see presented in this way. And I think when you get to a point when you're looking for, you know, that additional content that goes with it, that's the, you know, like some people, like people's ideas around those kind of things is just crazy. Like stuff that just comes up, and particularly from Ewan, actually, in these products is, you know, he just comes up with stuff and you're like, oh my God, that's good. Oh, that's really good. And I think it's kind of that ability to do that when it comes to, you know, nowadays, and I wouldn't say this happens every time, but, you know, when you're trying to get an interview with a certain person or a group of people, or trying to access a certain thing that's to do with that film, I think because we've built that reputation of being real, of being genuine, that, you know, no matter who it is, it could be people calling us or us getting in touch with people see we've got that track record of like, oh, these guys, yeah, they get it. They're going to take my film and they're going to just do some cool stuff with it. So, you know, and I think that combination of having that reputation just helps across the board. So it's you know, I think we've both making it sound like it's really easy, but it's really, really hard.
I can only imagine.
It's a lot of work, but when it happens and when it works, like that, you know, it feels really good. When it doesn't, it sucks. And there's so many things that you guys will never know about, things that didn't happen. But
I mean, you can only imagine,
right?
Jesus, oh, it's hard. It's really hard. And but yeah, no, it's really cool.
So I would say I've only been introduced to Arrow recently, if I'm going to be completely honest. Mike just texted me. He said, hey, want to review this movie? It's on Arrow Video. I'm like, okay, cool. I'll do some research. And it's like, I'm just seeing things I love. I see Tremors, the collector's edition on here. I see Oldboy, Ringu. I see all this kind of fun stuff. I'm just like thinking here, I don't see these on like these other streaming services so often. And it's actually kind of cool that these not so mainstream movies are in here, because they're just so fun and zany. And I find new things like Wizard of Gore, which apparently I didn't know is a cult classic. And I had no idea.
Now you know.
Now you know.
Exactly.
It's that just education, right? It's that's that thing. Like I knew nothing about those films when I first started at the company. Like, and again, that feast, the H.G. Lewis feast set, that was released I think around, probably about the time I started actually. So, and that was like, I mean, that was one of our craziest releases, right, Lou? I mean, that was
insane. Again, that was another Ewan title. And when he was kind of explaining what he wanted to do, he's like, I want to put it in a cereal box. It's gonna look like cereal. And everyone was just like, what?
What?
Like, what are you talking about? And
we're gonna scare these kids.
Yeah, and it just came together so amazingly. And I think that's one of the key things is we're given the space to, if you want to put it in a cereal box, like go for it. If it works, great. If you want to put it in a massive box that weighs more than a small child, sure. Like if you think people are going to buy it, and it's really fun. And I think that's what really helps us kind of keep the excitement going, because we're always trying to do new things. We're not just going to release films the same way, and this is kind of what we do on digital as well. It's not just throwing the film up there and moving on. We're putting extras on there, we're adding new artwork, we're just trying to like kind of spice it up and do something fun and celebrate these films, really.
So it's I think I'd add to that with you know, the point of what Arrow and what we're doing now, and you know, we've been doing you know, what we in the industry call SVOD, which you know is a terrible name, but it gets used in vernacular every day for us. But it, you know, it's a subscription video on demand service. So that, you know, right now there's multiple ways in how you can watch films, whether you rent them or buy them or subscribe or you watch ads or whatever it might be. And you know, so this we've been a part of this for about 3.5 years now, you know, since we launched in the UK. So we kind of knew a bit about how we do this, but the thing that we wanted to do, and I think where we wanted to get to by the time we launched Arrow in the US, was really getting to a point where, you know, in the Blu-ray world, you know, in that physical media world, we do something very different from everybody else. Like that's our MO. That's the thing that people know us for, and therefore things are different. So when you see the H.G. Lewis Feast against some kind of plastic, you know, Disney Blu-ray release, you know, with the most amount of respect to Disney, of course, but do you know what I mean? Like when you see those two things together. Now, one of them may represent a ginormous film, but the other one looks really, really, really cool and really different, and it's going to make you go, man, that's kind of really cool, and catches my attention and gets me intrigued on what that is. And that was like the kind of question for me, and then ultimately for, you know, other people at the company as well, is okay, how do we do that in this world, this digital world? And what, you know, I think we've done in building that, you know, since, you know, we started working on this service back in kind of April. You know, we had the service live on Apple TV channels, and then, you know, we, you know, saw where things were going and knew we wanted to kind of develop our own thing. And you know, it's a lot of work to do to get to that point. But ultimately, the main aim was we wanted to make something that was really different. It was really different from Shudder, and it was different from Criterion, and it was different from Mubi, and it was different from Netflix, and it was different from all of these different things. There may be some films that you've seen in other services, but we're going to bring it to you differently. We're going to make use of that artwork. We're going to bring you those additional features. We're going to bring you stuff you've never seen before. We're going to curate seasons and give you our thoughts on what we think you should watch. You know, the seasons we've got on the service right now, I mean, they're all picked by us. Like we sit there and go, hey, do you know what a really good theme would be? And you pull that together, and it's a fun way of watching films. It's the same thing the way we did it in Blu-ray. So to me, it's like, if you want to find like a service that's at least going to be interesting, do you know what I mean? Right. It's just, it's not like Netflix filled with all of these nameless films, endless content. You know, that's the word they use. It's content. For us, if you want to check out a service that looks really cool, has some really cool films, and guarantee you it will be much more interesting in the fact that we're going to present every one of these films as in the best way we possibly can. So you're going to sit there and go, wow, I want to check out Children of the Corn, or I want to check out, you know, Jesus Shows You the Way to the Highway, or I'm going to check out Hellraiser, you know, presenting those films just in the same way you look at that Blu-ray and that Disney, you know, kind of Blu-ray. you're going to pick something because it's slightly different. And that's what the service is. It's about looking and feeling different, but giving you a really cool, fun experience that doesn't, I was about to say doesn't take itself too seriously, but that's probably not the right word, but you know what I mean? It's trying to kind of translate the fun and how we do it, into something that hopefully people can pick up.
And that's kind of the thing that drew me to Arrow, is you could feel the love that's put into each and every release. My mother, who was my inspiration for horror, she's a big horror fan. So for her birthday, of course, they bought her the Arrow Deep Rising Blu-ray so she can play it on her TV because she loves Deep Rising.
Yeah.
And something as simple as the custom artwork on the cover sheet is enough to be like, this is different. This isn't your standard, release in theaters poster. Like, someone took time to put some extra love into this rendition of this film. And
those artworks are incredible.
I love them.
Like, oh man, like, it's just, I think that, just using that example in artwork is, when you look back through, a shelf of people's Blu-rays and you see all that incredible art that's on there and all these amazing artists and illustrators that from all over the world as well that we work with, and and Lou works with tons of them, with these guys, and we get so we're blessed. Do you know what I mean, to get that kind of stuff? Like, we're lucky to get that kind of stuff. But do you know what we can do with it on this service is we can blow that up into 4K, and we can take over your screen with it. Like, that's pretty great.
That's cool.
You know what I mean?
Cool.
Like, that is the thing. Like, if you really love this artwork, wait till you see it in 4K because it looks crazy. And I think that's, again, to us, like, that's making the best use you can of these incredible bits of art that we are very lucky to use.
I gotta say, my favorite piece, if I could have it framed on my wall, I would, is the custom artwork for the Reanimator Blu-ray. It's so beautiful and so simple, and I want it on my wall. I want people to look at it and be like, is that Reanimator? And say, yes. Where did you get that from? Arrow.
Is that like your first... Was that your first horror movie, Mike?
My first horror movie in life, you guys are going to laugh, was Jaws. Jaws.
No, that's classic. That's good.
Yeah.
It wasn't even movie. I was at Universal Studios Hollywood with my father, and I saw they had this prop 1-to-1 Jaws being hung kind of upside down, and that gave me nightmares. And I eventually had to see it, which further influenced my horror. My mother was like, I can't have this. I can't have a son that's not into horror and is scared. So she had me watch the making of Jaws and with Steven Spielberg and Richard Dreyfuss, and my eyes just widened, and I just became a horror kid from that point on. That was my very first horror.
I have to say, I think my first introduction to horror, honestly, is Tremors. I just saw it on broadband, just on TV when I was probably 6 years old, and I just loved it. Granted, it was campy as all hell. But
that I think isn't that the kind of the joy of horror?
Yes.
Like, it's, I think, that there's such a range of stuff. Like, for me, I think it's I gotta say it's probably like Gremlins, which I absolutely call a horror film.
Absolutely.
Just the but I saw this thing when I was 5. Like, I mean, my girlfriend talk about this all the time. Like, the 80s in the UK is just this Wild West of just putting your kid in front. Because I was doing the math the other day, and I was thinking about the things I watched when I was must have been between the age of 5 and 8. And it's things that now, I wouldn't put my daughter in front of that. Are you insane? It's things where, you sit and watch it going, dude, this is really messed up. And it's, I remember at the age of 8 watching the first Terminator film.
Yeah.
And that's 8 years old watching the first. No wonder I've turned out the way. It's those kind of films. But it's I think for me, when I think of something like Gremlins now, and you see that the tropes of that. But the great thing is, it's all done very much in that kind of tongue-in-cheek approach, which I think is what sometimes horror can just cut through really, really well.
Absolutely. One of my favorite examples of that is Peter Jackson's Dead Alive, where it's this extremely gory film, but it's also very tongue in cheek, you know, and it's goofy in its slapstick, which cuts the horror a little bit. Cause if you're too young, it's extremely terrifying. But if you're, you know, 15 and up, it's hilarious and, you know, in just goofy mayhem, you know.
I mean, I'm going to probably watch Gremlins for Christmas because that's the best Christmas movie.
Yeah, it goes in my house. It goes Gremlins, it goes Gremlins, Lethal Weapon, and those are the Christmas movies.
Lethal Weapon is a great Christmas movie, right?
It's an amazing Christmas movie.
I haven't seen that film in a long time, man. That's one for my list for Christmas. That's great.
See, and that's actually
so how about So how about you, Lou? What was your first horror movie that kind of hooked you in there?
This is a hard one because me and my sister basically grew up egging ourselves on to watch scary films, trying to punk each other out to be like, you're afraid. But one of the ones that I really remember, actually, speaking of Peter Jackson, is me and my sister, when we were really young, we used to be really into the Muppets and the Great Muppet Movie. So we went to the video store. My mum saw Meet the Feebles and assumed it was another Muppet movie, and she was so wrong. So we were both kind of scarred by that. So that was definitely one that sticks with me. But yeah, because me and my sister are a similar age, she's a couple of years older, we basically just spent our kind of youth consuming whatever we could get our hands on. Our uncle used to have some really cool VHSs in his room, so whenever we'd go over, we'd be like, can we borrow this? And there'd always be the back and forth of, you're too young, you'll be scared, you can't. But he'd always in the end relent, and we'd be watching From Dusk Till Dawn, American Werewolf in London, all of those, and then kind of giving it back meekly the next time that we saw him, being like, no, we weren't scared. What are you talking about? We're cool. What else have you got? And yeah, I think I'm the biggest baby when I watch horror films. I'm terrible. I the jumpiest person, even at the lamest jump scare that anyone else can see coming. It always gets me. But I guess that's part of the charm for me. I like watching these films and kind of falling into them and just being able to be scared. I think I kind of feel bad for people when they watch horror and they're like, nothing scares me. It's just a shame, because that's part of the charm for me.
For me, it's also I have to. My wife is horrible with any kind of scary movie. So we have to kind of curate it so it's kind of fun and campy sometimes. So, just last week was the first time she ever watched Fright Night, the 1980 version, the original.
Nice. Yeah. Nice.
And granted, that was kind of scary as a little kid, at least the later half was.
Yeah.
But as an adult, you just kind of look back and go, this is just fun.
That's one of the kind of these little subgenres that we've got on Arrow that we do really, really well is that kind of, comedy horror, which, it's a terrible terminology, but do you know what I mean? It's that there's so many of these films in this space that are just really well done, and they can actually continue to be. I think, in that kind of cult film kind of genre that we, if you even want to call it that we look after, that it means we can be so diverse in that space. Because I think that's the thing is, horror to some people is something very serious. Do you know?
Right.
It has to be this, and it has to be mega gory, or it has to be super scary, or it has to be what, and I think that's the kind of joy of it. And I think that's the joy of looking at kind of cult films overall, because I guarantee you that, something Jesus Shows You the Way to the Highway. It's a film we got on the service, which is without doubt one of my favorite films of the year. And that film, to me, I know will appeal to a horror film fan. I can't tell you really why, but it's it's in the same kind of wheelhouse as that. And I think that, to me, is what's so fun, that we're not kind of restricting ourselves on bringing stuff in, because again, from as you're probably picking up right now, Lou and I have, very different kind of tastes in films, or films that we've seen and whatever it might be. But that doesn't kind of clash.
Yeah.
I know that sounds kind of weird, but it's like that across the whole company. You just kind of go, well, that person likes that stuff, so actually they're the expert in that thing. So do you know? So we all can kind of bounce off each other, because there's some stuff that Lou will throw to me that, and I was saying earlier that I'm I don't know what that is. That sounds really cool. What do you think? And it's just, her telling me that she's just like, yeah, this is really cool, and I'm like, right, I'm gonna go check that out because it's great. So it's kind of cool that in just even within our own company, we get to kind of have you get to kind of suggest stuff to people like, oh my god, have you seen this? Did you see the link of that thing that came in? It was this thing, and you're like, no, it's that happens. Or probably like in the least professional way. Maybe it's meant to be that you sit seriously, go, yes, no, I see how many dollars this thing can make. And unfortunately, we're just really like, oh my god, look at this film, it's so cool. It's kind of great.
And you've actually answered my next question, which was how are films chosen to get the Arrow treatment?
Lou picks them.
Yeah,
it's just Lou.
I think I'd be drunk on power if that was the case. I'd be going wild.
Absolute power.
This podcast is just showing that Lou is the backbone of the company.
Yes, this is what I've learned.
I'm 100% behind that. It's a weird. Lou, I don't know. I always sometimes when I get this question, it's so hard to answer. Like, how things kind of like there's no real set way, right? I mean, I'm not going.
I know. It sounds
like
there should be a cop out, isn't it? It's like it depends.
It feels like I should have like a company line on it, like in front of me, like a boilerplate thing that I can just go, well, Arrow Films thinks blah blah. It's just I can't think that there's one set way. No. Like every deal, like every release, every title is ever so slightly different, and I think that there's no kind of set formula to it, right? I mean, that's that.
I think that's the beautiful thing, though, because it will be cases of sometimes someone will go to a film festival and see a film and then report back and be like, this was amazing, let's check it out. Sometimes we'll get filmmakers coming to us direct with a film. We do a lot of deals with studios, so sometimes we'll kind of go through their catalogue, cherry pick what we want, or they'll send us a list of like, we have X amount of titles available, tell us what you want. And it really just depends. And then sometimes it is just people like Ewan just finding a film that he loves and just frantically working for years to kind of untangle the right situation and kind of find out who actually has it, so we can kind of give it a new lease of life, which is cool.
And I think the other thing now as well is I think it's now become even more kind of diverse than that now as well, because, as well as having that part of the business where, like someone like a Ewan who, may spend, a really good chunk of time just going through everything for what would be, this kind of great Blu-ray release, that there's also a kind of a different process now with what comes onto the Arrow service, which is kind of, as we're only, it feels like we're only now kind of really starting to understand that split, like how that works. Because in a way, it's, that kind of sits with kind of like Lou and myself and Julie and the team and a couple of other people in giving the guidance a bit more on that. So do you know what I mean? So sometimes these things kind of cross over. Like sometimes we'll take the films if we've got the rights to do so, but other times it's like it's kind of curation ideas. It's coming up with ideas for things that can come from any of us. We've got a guy called Alan in our team who is just incredible at ideas, like stuff that just, we're on this little group chat that like me, Lou, Julie and Alan, and between the four of us, like the ideas that come through are just great. Like, it will be sometimes someone will have like written it at like, 1 a.m. and then you don't get it till like the morning and you're like, wait a minute, what is this? But it's just that's the other part now that rather than just individual specific releases, you can start working a bit broader on that. And well, why don't we collect things together? Like, why don't we think of more of a season where we could look at a certain director or a certain genre or a certain subgenre or a certain, cultural issue or social issue or whatever else is going on in the world that you want to pick on. Or, sometimes it's kind of based around another film. We may have another film coming up. You actually, November's a really good kind of jumping on point for something like that. Like, so, we've got a film called the El Duce Tapes, which is a documentary all about, a very shocking individual from the early 90s. He's just, again, a very relevant thing to talk about right now in his approach to kind of shock and entertainment. But that we knew we were bringing that film in November, back in the summer, I think. And so the kind of the spark of that idea, was several things around, the controversial nature of this subject.
Mm-hmm.
And so that then brings in this idea of, well, we need a really cool season that can build that. And that, for this month on Arrow is this thing called Ban This Sick Filth,
Mm-hmm.
which is really talking about controversial films.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's kind of cool now I'm hopefully I'm speaking for Lou, because if not, then we probably need to have a meeting tomorrow morning. But what I'd say is it's really cool to see that stuff live, like to see a season or a film or a series of films like out on that service,
Mm-hmm.
because it's kind of like, I know I know how that idea came to be. It was a group of people just talking through ideas and talking through like some fun stuff that we could kind of think about. And the end result is that kind of idea curation. So it's a very similar process to what, our producers do around, pulling together amazing stuff for just this, the passion goes into one film.
Right.
You know what I mean? That it's that die hard kind of like, Blu-ray release that's going to be really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that kind of mentality, but in a kind of curating series of titles together, becomes something really fun and really interesting. It's the same approach. It's just kind of naturally, diverted that way. So it's a fun thing to have within that digital space.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to mention that I think something that was really cool was like your creator collections. Like I was looking at the Edgar Wright collection of films that he's chosen. Was it hard kind of getting that information from these these filmmakers, these I would say influencers in the industry?
Lou will attest to this, that that one was actually really easy. That, right, Lou? I mean, that was probably the big surprise for us, is like, we you imagine 1st of October was our launch date for the service. Mm-hmm. So it's like, tons of work going on like throughout kind of the summer and September, and, testing things out and making sure the apps worked and making sure everything made sense and all of that kind of stuff. And in the background was this idea of working with Edgar and going, hey, can we just get him to pick some films and talk about them? And it was just like this idea in the back of my mind, right? I was just like, it's never gonna happen.
Right.
It's just sat there on like a document where you're going, yeah, we may as well just delete that now. I mean, it looks cool, but but that was really easy, right, Lou? I mean, maybe I'm remembering incorrectly, but
no, he was amazing. He was really, really enthusiastic about it. He sent back one list of titles that he picked, and then he wanted to add some more, and it kind of just evolved. And then he obviously wrote us a few kind of capsule reviews that we could tweet out to kind of complement the season. And it was really lovely that he was just so supportive and willing, especially, obviously we've worked with him before and we have a relationship with him, but being there when we're launching this brand new SVOD service that, for all he knew, it could have been terrible, but they were willing to support us. And it was really great. And his reviews of the films that he picked and why were just fantastic. Like, they were amazing, and we're so happy to have worked with him on that.
That's super cool. It's super interesting. Yeah,
that's super fascinating that he was just like instantly, yes, please do this.
It's crazy, right? I mean, it's we kind of have to to I guess pinch ourselves a little bit every so often. I mean, you kind of get down into the the day-to-day of doing this. It's a job, of course it is. And so therefore you sometimes, when you're just plowing through a ton of this to make sure it all works, you occasionally lose the context of what it is you're doing. And it's moments like that. And we've had lots of people in the industry from all walks of life get in touch with us, particularly not just the company around our Blu-rays, which has happened like numerous times with people, but even with this. And it's a shame I can't mention and name drop some of the people breaking their confidence. But we've had some people get in touch, which we found out like the service through kind of like third parties and stuff. We're like, are you insane?
Yeah.
Like, that person watches like it's kind of crazy to get that, but I think that's the kind of cool thing with someone like Edgar helping out, and we've got more of those coming up, like that. You know, we're in conversations with people a lot of the time, so there'll be more of those kinds of, you know, guest curations, and it's not always going to be, you know, an Edgar Wright as well as much as we'd love to do that. I think it's also about highlighting, you know, people within this cult movie industry, like this horror movie industry, that don't get, you know, enough love, and they don't have to be, you know, big famous directors like Edgar. They can be people that work at other companies. You know, we're working with the American Genre Film Archive and AGFA with having some of their films on our service, you know, in a couple of weeks, and I think it's kind of, they're going to be able to select a load of our films to just talk through and give their point of view on films that they really like as well. And I think that, again, it to us, that was always a key part of this service was, you know, just because it kind of says Arrow, it doesn't mean we can't bring some of these other companies and some of these other people into this world and go, hey, we really love what you do.
Right.
Can you just take a look at some of these things and just tell us a bit about you and a bit more about the kind of films you like? And that kind of curation is really fun, man. It's like, you know, getting some, you know, as I said, someone like Edgar to be involved and pick, you know, a really and his selection of films was so good as well.
Yes.
Like it was just like, because you're just thinking, you know, we've got quite a diverse library, and so it's one of those things where, you know, if he just picks like a ton of like, you know, films that like, oh man, I mean that's a good film, but I really wish you'd pick this. But he just picked some really great films, and films that, like, you know, I think even some of his reviews were really interesting to me. Like the fact that like these little kind of tweet reviews he did, and he would talk about, you know, a film maybe I've seen like 1,000 times that I'm like, yeah, it is kind of like that, right? So it's great that he gives it that bit of, you know, that bit of color as well to kind of add to it.
Absolutely. And it also gives you an insight into their inspirations, which I think is really interesting. Kind of like, okay, I can see where he's coming from with his choices versus his, you know, his style in directing. It's like, it just gives you a little bit more insight into the curator, which I always think is super fascinating and super cool.
It's
just
like so cool that you have all these seasonal themed curated, I guess you'd say curated content, honestly. But it's just so fascinating. You have all these little fun ideas going back together. I mean, like Shocktober, that was, honestly, I never even thought about that kind of topic or theme in the first place. But you've mentioned all these seasons and ideas laid out in the future. Do you have any special sneak peeks or even just like a little of a bit of a teaser? Because I would love, for instance, like next year during Shark Week, if you could have all of Sharknado up and available.
Do you know, there's a conversation about like aquatic horror for sure that we had early this year that we couldn't, like, I think we had like a few films lined up, and we were like, oh man, like we could totally do like a total, like, and not just the typical ones people know. Like, I think, you know, we do really like to dig a little bit deeper into it, but that to me would definitely be a good one. I think the our December is going to be really fun.
Yeah.
We only kind of, yeah, we had a meeting on Friday, which was really fun because that is literally it. Like we just block out a load of time, you know, every couple of weeks, and we just chat. Like we just talk about, you know, what's coming up, what we're looking at, but you just bounce off. I mean, some of them are just like, you know, I look at notes in front of me right now from that meeting actually, and it's like some ideas that I'm going, dude, what will be on? Like that. Just like, who came up? Oh, it was me. So, but that I think I would say, if we managed to do, do you know what? If we managed to do even half of what we talked about on Friday, it's going to be a really fun December because there's some great stuff there.
Awesome. That is super exciting.
That's gonna be really fun to just see what happens in that lineup. I'm looking forward to that because I want a red Christmas.
Oh,
interesting.
keep the wall wet, huh? Just red Christmas.
Santa Claus is coming and he's not happy.
Silent Night, Deadly Night? Question mark.
Krampus?
Question mark. But yeah, it's one of those things where everybody has their wish list. Like, I think my secret wish list is something to do with like the full moon films. I love those. They're so quirky. You know, like Doll Man and Demonic Toys, and of course Puppet Master and all those strange little movies.
Yeah.
You know, I did want to ask, for Arrow Video, for your streaming service, do you have any plans on any further integration into, let's say, some of the consoles, like the upcoming PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X? Do you see that being available on those systems as well, by any chance?
I think definitely for Xbox.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one that we're already looking at now. So we obviously launched on Android TV yesterday, I think Friday, something like that.
I saw that.
So that was really cool to finally get that one. So, it was, we've got like quite a range there, but Xbox is definitely planned for next year. I think we're looking at Samsung as well, that they've got a service called Tizen, which is just, the connected Samsung TV thing. But PlayStation, absolutely, we want to do that. I think that to me, I worked with that company on and off for 10 years, and they're always a really interesting company. They go through kind of waves and on how they work, which is really cool. So a Sony app, I think for the PS5, I think is one we're really kind of pushing our developers on at the moment. So I'd see that if we are going to do that, that would probably come kind of next year. But yeah, I think expansion, Xbox, I could see probably sooner. And then, so you've got to remember that we've just gone from only being available on like Apple TV channels to like Roku, Fire TV, Apple TV, Android TV. Like, it's crazy to us. Like we've never been in so many spaces before, so we're just like going, so wait a minute, what the hell is Roku? And you just because and I think we're still getting used to it, but we just keep on going like, hey, should we just launch like another one? And it's like, sure, right. Like that's the Android TV thing came about pretty much in that same way. Like, we've got the ability to do it, should we do it? Because we are getting bugged by a lot of people that want it on Android TV. So so it's good to expand out and get to as many people as possible. That's the kind of key aim, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, whenever it comes to the PlayStation, I'm going to download that pretty quick, I imagine.
Yeah.
It's going to be great.
So
So I have to say, like, my last question, I always like to have these kind of interviews with like a fun question. So for me, I cannot watch Child's Play because I have this deep ingrained fear of dolls coming to life and murdering me. So it's really sad. I can never watch a Child's Play movie. So I have to ask, what is everyone's one movie or even just a movie genre you cannot watch? You just have to leave.
Oh, I'm just so affected by yours. Oh, that's really cute. I guess,
well, now I feel bad.
I know what someone's getting for Christmas.
Yeah, I was gonna, just so many. No. So many dolls coming to you now. It's like 1,000. I
already have my Amazon open. I'm just wish listing 17 different horror dolls.
My neighbor had a kid on the trampoline with a Chucky doll, and I was just thinking, I'm going to freak out if that thing comes to my door.
Oh my god, that's adorable. I think from my side, mine was going to be
adorable. It's terrifying.
I guess I'll watch anything. I'm like the biggest like nerd. If you put a film in front of me, even if I'm not enjoying it, I'm gonna watch it to the end. Like I have to. But I guess one of the kind of the subgenres that I'm not making too much of an effort to get kind of more invested in is like fake snuff films, kind of like the guinea pig films. Oof. It just like the mean-spirited nature of them just doesn't really do it for me. So if someone says one's amazing and there's kind of loads of merit and I need to see it, I'll probably watch it, but it's not something that I kind of run towards because I just don't like them.
Yeah,
that's fair. That's more than fair.
I'm the same way. Like, I have a certain category of horror films that I just won't recommend because I'm the horror guy in my group. And I'm like, I'm just not going to recommend these to anyone because they may question our friendship after they've watched them, and so, it may actually compromise our friendship. And one of those movies is Martyrs. It's just I can't watch Martyrs. It's just way too heavy.
I agree. I mean,
can't do it. Like
it's that's the thing, man. It's about the subject matter of how things it's the same with something like Mother. Like, it's those kind of films where, do you know what, I've watched it that first time and I totally get what they're trying to say, and it looks incredible, and it's but I can't watch that again.
100%.
And the worst thing actually with Mother when I watched that, like, was when my girlfriend was expecting my daughter. The two, and we watched it together, and like the two of us, and I was like, no, this is not.
You just start backing out of the living room, right?
That's hard. And I think that's the same with something like Martyrs, man, where it's like, I've seen it that one time, and never do I want to see that again. And like, again, I totally get what it's trying to say and whatever. Like we've got shocking stuff on our service. Do you know what I mean? We've got stuff that really, really is hard watching for some people, and that's the point. It's a diverse thing. But I had that with The Strangers, man.
Oh yeah,
that's
a good one.
Like we watched that. Watched it the first time like years ago. I think when it first came out, and it was like, that looks great, and really fun. Oh my god, really scary. And then again, like, me and my girlfriend watched that again like 4 years ago, and I just felt like just awful dread. Like, I was just watching this thing, like, there's I think, Lou, actually you just nailed it, like the when it kind of starts to lack the fun, do you know what I mean? Like, it's just utterly goddamn terrifying. Like, it just shreds your nerves. There's not really much enjoyable, and there's just this thick, horrible feeling inside, and you're just watching it going. And we had to turn it off. Like, we got about halfway in, and I was like, you kind of remember a little bit of where it's going, and I was like, I don't think I can kind of watch this again. So I don't think I'm going to watch that again.
It's one of those where it's like, I have an evening free, I'll watch Requiem for a Dream. It's like, no, you don't do that. You don't do that, right?
Yeah, that's a good one, actually. It's an incredible film, but oh my god, I was like staring at the
it's a one and done.
Yeah,
it's a one and done, man.
It's like, I would recommend Old Boy, the Korean version, to people, but it's like watch it once.
It's one of those things where, sometimes I try to kind of figure out, like, what is the more disturbing film? Is it Requiem for a Dream, or was it Noah? Because
right, in the context.
Noah was hot. That film was more horrendous than Mother and Requiem for a Dream pulled together.
Combined,
that had some things going on in that I was like, what is happening here?
Don't think about it for longer than 2 seconds. You know what I mean?
It's like, sometimes it's like, there'll be certain films like that just totally make me go, am I not watching the same film as everyone else is? Have I lost it here? So yeah, it's a tough one.
That is awesome. I absolutely have enjoyed speaking with you, Daniel, speaking with you, Luis. This has been amazing. It's been absolutely amazing.
This has honestly been the highlight of my weekend.
This has been really fun. Fantastic. Thanks for having us. It was really, really fun.
Yeah, it's really great.
Absolutely. I definitely.
So do you have any closing comments, or just like,
I mean, just subscribe to Arrow. There you go.
Yeah.
Yes.
that's my kind of, that was that. It's, we're arrow-player.com, which you can kind of find out a bit more about what it is and what we do. You can get a 30-day free trial, which is, a ginormous amount of time to kind of come and check us out. And, it's, we're always open to kind of hearing ideas about things and hearing ideas about films that people watch and everything else. And, I mean, it's, it's great to kind of get this thing into the US and Canada, and, hopefully, it continues to do as well as it's been doing this last kind of 4 or 5 weeks.
Absolutely. And
I think you nailed it. I don't really have anything else to add to that.
It's perfect. It's spreading the love. It's building the community in brand new ways. And there's always that one person where their first horror will be seen on Arrow Video.